Okay. Great. Yeah, it's so nice to see your faces. Okay. So then let's just start today's discussion, I guess. So our topic for today is liberalism. And maybe at first we can just go around and everyone can maybe give their thoughts about how they would define liberalism. Maybe let's define it together. And then we can go deeper into the question our professor gave us, which was basically to discuss why some people see deepening economic interdependence as a growing risk to national security. That was our main topic for today. Okay, so let's just go around and talk about liberalism in general. Yes, who would like to start maybe? And just maybe comparing liberalism and realism, because that was our topic from last week.
I can start.
Okay, Anna, go ahead.
So last class we had realism as a topic, and it was like they think that every person is like selfish, and everything a person does is just for him or herself. So they said that it's just normal that nations or people end up in wars. And this time liberalism is our topic, and they think that it's important to work together and that cooperation is helps everyone, so they don't think that everything will end in a war. It's more than
Yes, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Hangyar, did you want to add something to that?
In liberalism, I think, according to liberalism argument, humans will establish norms and laws in nature states so that they don't fight each other every time, and maybe they can live well. And also, likewise, in international relationships, they also will be able to create norms and laws between countries. But according to Hobbes' theory, in nature state, it will be humans will always fight each other. It will be really confused.
Yeah, exactly. So the basic line of Hobbes was like human nature is evil, so that that was what realists based the theory on, because human nature is evil, that we cannot really rely on cooperation. Yeah. And I guess that was the contrast to liberalism, because our professor had this really nice comparison between the two. I can maybe share the PPT. Screen. Just give me a second. Okay. So you can all see the PPT, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I really like the this chart, because it's very clear and structured, and we were just talking about human nature and how realists saw it as evil and liberalists had a more optimistic view on it, which I personally really liked. And it was based on the fact that humans are capable of cooperation, and well, that's our main topic today, right? So that when states cooperate, work together, that there's international peace and security. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to say that this is very interesting because there's some, well, this word interdependence, it is also very interesting in this topic of liberalism, as it kind of describes like a global community in which, as you can imagine, like there's like this friend of yours from another country, but as you make like a relationship with them, you tend to share experiences and all that stuff, and so that it makes like a link with them, and so then you help him, and he helps you or she in order to achieve like mutual interests, as it is like to
Yeah.
maintain a healthy relationship. So that is very important in like to preserve peace. That it is also a mainly um, um, a mainly word, or I don't know how to say it here at liberalism, as it at the PPT was present like almost in all the slides, like in collective security and peace,
Yes.
democracy and peace, and interdependence and peace. So that's
Yes.
quite interesting also.
Yeah. Would anyone like to add something to that? Maybe someone who hasn't spoken yet today.
It's like just for me. The first, all right. The first that after I see the PPT was like, there's this chart that comparing realism and liberalism. My first thought was that liberalism was talking about like human is bird with evil, and they're bad minds. So realism is like more like aggressive thing. But beside that, liberalism is more like peaceful cooperation and helping each other. So yeah, I don't know, it's really pretty easier than before. Like, last week I didn't understand everything, but this time I think I'm getting a little bit.
Yeah, I think realism at first was a bit difficult for me to understand as well. But now that we've had this material about liberalism and comparing the two really made it clear to me what realism is really about, or even more clear, I guess. And maybe realists would say that liberalists are naive, that it's not realistic way of thinking, obviously, but it's at least something that makes people feel more secure and also more respected, because one of the points in the PPT was that an important factor for liberalists is the respect for human rights, and that is obviously really, really important. For example, when you have a state where the government does not respect human rights, where you can call the leader a tyrant, maybe a dictator, then the international community will come together and point it out and say, hey, what you are doing to your own people, that is not right. Stop this, or we will take measures. For example, like in our now in our day and age, it's always happening. For example, when, I don't know, Russia is doing something that the US doesn't like, then all of a sudden they will stop trading with them, or like have like this ban on trade or whatever. Or when, I don't know, what's happening in the Middle East, with Afghanistan and Syria and all these countries, the US as one of the global superpowers will always be like, hey, stop that, we don't like what you're doing, which of course they can abuse, you can abuse your power. But if it's the international community coming together, everyone, they can try to make it better, try to help other people be respected and have their rights respected, I guess. Yes.
Yeah, there's also quite a new example, like this situation with Pakistan, that the Taliban took over, and you know that all the
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, right?
Not,
That's
not
right.
Pakistan.
Sorry.
It's okay.
But all the embassies from other countries were like abandoned, because that's the measure that they are taking right now, that they do not recognize the Taliban's government way of governing, because well, it doesn't respect human rights. You know that all these restrictions they have to women, they are not well seen nowadays, and well, they have never been. And that's a very actual example, I think.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think we've already gotten really deep into this topic. I think, does anyone have a question or doesn't understand something about liberalism, or does everyone here know what it is and understands it? If you have questions, I think we can also discuss them. I mean, these discussions are also good for, you know, taking care of that. Well, if not, then maybe let's get into today's main discussion point, which is on the last page of the PPT. I'm just reading it out again. Discussion topic: deepening economic interdependence between states is often considered to be a growing risk to national security. Why is that? And we should discuss it with examples. So maybe I'll just go first. So to be honest, the very first thing I thought of when I read this sentence was North Korea and the because North Korea in the beginning, they tried to be completely cut off. They didn't want to trade with anyone. They didn't want to rely on anyone. And as many of you may know, that led to a lot of people dying. There was not enough food. There was a great famine. Millions of people died because there wasn't enough food. North Korea tried to be completely cut off and a hermit state, but they didn't succeed, because in our day and age, you cannot really be completely on your own. You have to trade with people. You have to work with people. And that was the first thing I thought of, basically. So North Korea. Any other examples that you guys maybe can think of, or maybe you want to add to my comment?
At first, I want to start with speaking about realism. So as it seems to me that realism nowadays is more working point of view. Like I just want to remember your Azize example of Russia and European Union. So despite the promise that reduce the consumption of natural gas from Russia, they just continue to increase its exports, and regardless of all of Russian actions, and that they don't like Moscow's actions in Ukraine, and just like all of Russian actions, but they just continue to buy their natural gas and their resources. And it seems to me that Europe may remain dependent on Russian gas for the coming decades, because they just don't have more profitable alternative, and it just they don't have another choice, and they don't want to find another choice because it's profitable for them. So I think that liberalistic point of view is very optimistic, but it's not that we have right now in our world. So also we can see at Afghanistan and American army who just left people to die in the system, like, and also this example of interdependence, like European Union and Russia, like natural gas, they just depend on Russia and they can do anything. Like the nearest visit of Angela Merkel in Moscow was like, you're doing awful things. Putin was like, okay, it's not your deal. And she just, okay, that's all. They just ended the conversation with this. Nothing happened. Like, and as for the question, like it was question, is often considered to be a growing risk to national security. And why is that? As for me, it's because the possibility that like investment and ownership provide access to gain influence and control over the operations of companies in some maybe critical sectors or facilitate in critical processes, like, and this control could be used strategically and or even misused, particularly in such investments which are guided or supported by states that maintain competing economic systems. Like, for example, Netherlands, it's country with highly depend on international trade, with international hubs like functions of Port of Rotterdam or like Schiphol Airport. Also, they have Amsterdam Internet Exchange. So like it's country where the exports and imports of goods and services just one of the highest in the world, and it's emerged as the most interconnected country in the world. They have very open economy with a very advanced infrastructure, and of course, it's such an attractive market for foreign investors. But as a result, they just don't have their own decision-making process. Much of their macroeconomic decision-making process is determined at European Union. Just, of course, most of all their partners and investors are from European Union, and they just don't have their own decision-making process in their own country. And of course, it's a risk for like national security.
Yes, that's an excellent point you made there. Thank you, Albina, for your view. I think when you talk about Europe, you can talk about the different member states of the EU, and most prominently what we've seen with Brexit, you know, the Great Britain or the UK leaving the European Union.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why this had so many supporters was because they didn't feel independent enough. The British always want to be, they want to feel free, I guess, and they felt like in the European Union, they had to do whatever Europe told them to do. If you want to, I don't know, import something, sell something, whatever you want to do, the EU has laws for it, and you have to follow the rules. You have to follow the laws. And the British didn't like many of those laws. For example, using different measurement systems. Like, you know how in Korea or in most of the world, we use kilograms and kilometers. And the UK really hated that they couldn't really use pounds and miles and stuff like that. And now they switched back to that. I don't know if you saw the news, the headline maybe, but they will switch back to all their British measurement systems because they want to feel more independent, and they feel like that's gonna make them more secure if they don't have to depend on Europe so much, that they will have more national security.
Also, maybe as an example, like what happens in France, like they now have more immigrants than their own citizens, and like because of their policy of kindness and warmth, they just lose their own nationality, their own like how I can say it, originality. So they just becoming a country of immigrants, and citizens of France really worries about it. They just don't know what's happening. They just can't see French people in France.
I think we have to be a bit careful with that, because this can be misunderstood as a racist view. France, if they have lots of immigrants, it's their own fault because they have colonized half of the world, and you can't really blame people for trying to improve their life, I guess. But let's stay on topic. Let's talk more about like this national security and interdependence. Anyone else who wants to give some examples maybe from other countries?
So, other countries? Actually, I want to
maybe you could. Yeah, please go.
Add about North Korea, because you said it first, and also Albina said about self-reliance ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now North Korea is depending a lot to South Korea, but also China and Russia. They're getting a lot of army systems and like weapons and also foods. So I can say that North Korea now, they don't have self-reliance ability. So if every traits, economic traits from the other country is cut off, they can't live anymore. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is about the balance. Let's say I want to talk about China and America.
Mhm.
Now those two countries are the biggest country in this world, right? And they hate each other, but at the same time they're making a lot of economic trade. So let's say there are blocks, trading blocks like this. So there's blocks like this, and there's bridge on those two
Yes.
blocks. Let's say this one more like this. So these are the trades they are making. Two blocks and there's a bridge on it. So when just one of them, maybe let's say America is angry about China, what they're doing, so they cut off just a single trade from here. And that there was the same height, so it was balanced, but when it cut off, it's gonna break down. So because of their depending a lot for each other's economic trades, so just a little thing of breaking might break all the communities and economic ability or something, whatever, everything. So I think that's another reason why it's risk to national security.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely.
I don't know, whatever.
What do you mean, whatever? That was a good point. That was a good example. No, of course. When you have huge superpowers like that, but also any country that works together. Also, like the example that Albina gave earlier. When the German chancellor or like the German politicians say to Russia, "Hey, you shouldn't do this in Ukraine or Belarus. What are you doing? Stop doing that." But then Putin is like, "Well, yeah, but we won't. What are you gonna do? You still need our gas. You still not need our oil. What are you gonna do? If you don't like what we're doing, then we're not gonna give you anything. Period."
Yeah.
So it's this kind of, I don't know how to say it in English, but like the strongman game, who has the more resources can try to force other people to do what they want and ignore the problems in the country. Like the European Union especially tries to make other countries do what they want. For example, so my parents are from Turkey, right? I was born in Germany, and Turkey wants to be in the European Union, or they wanted to be for such a long time. And Turkey is always between Europe and Asia.
Yes,
and they've been trading a lot. But the European Union never really let Turkey in because they said, hey, you have human rights issues in your country. What about all the journalists that are in prison? What about women's rights and so on? And Turkey, for a long time, tried to improve their country and try to improve human rights so that they could enter the European Union and have benefits, of trading and free movement beyond the borders. Also telecommunications, because I don't know if you guys know this, but if you have a European SIM card from Germany, for example, you can go to Italy, Spain, Netherlands, and you can just use your phone like normal. We have one network in Europe, basically. And in Turkey, it's a bit more difficult because it's in between. It's not Europe, but it's not Asia. It's not Middle East. It's this middle thing. And Europe tried to make Turkey change so that they would join. And now I think the politicians and the people have been so disappointed because they're not accepted that they are doing their own thing again. And that's why the current president, for example, is like, no, we are going to be independent. We don't want anything to do with you anymore. We are Turkey. We are strong, blah, blah, blah. So this sort of national pride thing also plays a huge role. And they feel more secure when they're on their own than when they have to do what Europe tells them to do. So yeah, that's another example for that.
I think in general, maybe hundreds of years ago, like when every country was independent, maybe it felt like a high security, because if they did something, they were just responsible for themselves. But now, like, I mean, cooperation, I think it's a really good thing, but also I understand that maybe some countries that are dependent on others maybe are like scared if another country just breaks up with a cooperation. For example, let's say in Asia, there's the production of rice is really high, and in Germany, rice. And if the cooperation just stops, and they are afraid of, okay, if Asia stops the cooperation with us and doesn't give us rice, we don't have rice. So it's nice to have a cooperation, but maybe the national security is like could be or is dependent on that. So maybe that's like it's really good to have it, but for the national security, it could be a problem if a fight starts something and just breaks up.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, but the thing is, like, I don't know if any country was ever completely independent.
No, I just meant like when every country was more independent, like hundreds of years ago. So I think it's a good way that it that it isn't like that anymore. So I think it's really good to have corporations, but maybe that's the reason for being afraid that a high corporation could what's the word? It's a risk for the national security.
That's a good point. Globalization is plays also a huge role in this, and because we're all connected through internet, literally right now. And a lot of people a lot of people think that because of globalization they lose their national identity. For example, when you're in Korea and you see so many American restaurants and they say, oh, Korea is becoming more and more westernized, and they feel like they lose their identity maybe, and also lose a sort of, national security, globalization and liberalism. But I don't know if that fear is really justified. I don't know if it's really such a bad thing if we all work together and no one tries to force other people to do stuff they don't want to do.
I have a little bit idea with Bomin's idea. I think like United States and China, Bomin said they trade each other a lot. So if something small broken, it will be really hard for each country. But I think like United States have more power and they got some pride. So
I think so too.
yeah. So every presidents are like blocking and stopping China's like activity. So
they try to control China, right?
Yeah, they try to control China. So like and almost United States citizens they don't care about like China a lot, and they are always thinking about they are way higher than China, so they don't like really care about they cannot trade or something with China. So I think like United States are way stronger maybe or something. So they can like they can block China and they can control China. So they don't like really care about how trade are going on. Yeah, but I'm not sure about it. But and you guys told about like these days examples, but I thought when I saw this sentence first, I thought when economic interdependence is going deepening, I thought it will be always it will be good for peace or something. But when I find or study about this this, and I find some like examples from history, like economic independence theory assumes that conflict will reduce or block trade, right? But I also think this assumption is really logical, and I also think like this. But when I find some examples, when I find some examples, I find like World War One. In the decades before World War One, there were like unprecedented growth in international trades and telecommunications and interconnections. But needless to say, war broke out. So like this one, or also in World War One. I found some historical examples that national trade carried out during the war, including like strategic materials that directly affect the enemy's ability to carry out war. Like in British and Dutch war, British insurance companies continued to provide insurance to enemy ships and pay for replacing ships destroyed by their own forces, like that. And during like World War II, there were many cases where American companies continued to trade strategic products with Germany.
Really?
Yeah, like I found examples. So I was also surprised, and so when I saw this, I thought like they can also they can also like trade or something in during the war. So yeah, it can be also grow risk about national security. Yeah.
Yeah, those are great points. Thank you for that. I didn't know that, these examples that you pointed out. Thank you for that.
I want to add something to what he says. He said that it was this United States and China situation that, but I want to connect it better to my country, which is Mexico. So from my point of view and from the recent situation of economic issues between those countries, it is stated in this NAFTA agreement, you know?
Yeah.
What? Excuse me.
I've heard about it, but maybe you can explain it one more time.
Yeah, the NAFTA agreement is a new agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, commercial agreements in which they protect resources and what they sell and all that stuff, exports and imports from the area. So recently, United States increased cost on exports of China, so that people from the United States can buy like more products from other countries rather than China. So this cost of prices also were increased to Mexico because majority of resources uses from Mexico to manufacture cars, because Mexico is, I think, one of the largest car manufacturers, and and also one of the largest computers manufacturers to the US. So that the products from China come to Mexico, and Mexico manufacture and sold to US. But the US wants to protect like the economy or resources from the area, so they increase the cost. Not only to China, they also increase it to Mexico, as you know, as I explained, they mostly use these China products. And so this is like impacting so much in Mexico's economy, as steel industry is huge from China. I think China is the largest economy on producing steel. and as Mexico, sorry, manufacturers, uh, uh, well, then Mexico has to get the steel from other part, or they have to produce it, and so it will become more costly. And as you know, labor force in Mexico is very cheap, so this is actually impacting so much in economic growth of Mexico, and it is also impacting a lot in its exports to the U.S. because China is, I think, is actually the biggest economic power. Yeah, it has passed the U.S. But from what is really dangerous is like you have from Mexico, you have like your biggest commercial partner, which is the US, but you also have like this China huge power to produce and to sell and all these things. So you are like Mexico, you are in the middle of this commercial war. So it actually affects so much national security because you are in between the two of the largest economies in the world. And that was like a very good example from my partner, which I am glad he introduced it, like this U.S. and China situation.
Right.
Thank you. That's great. Would anyone else like to add their opinion or other examples they found?
Like not about the topic, but does anyone know how long it should be?
Our discussion right now?
Yeah, like 30 minutes, 4 minutes.
I think when we had our class 2 weeks ago, our professor said about 40 minutes, but I guess if it's a bit shorter, that's fine. I think we started about 35 or 40 minutes ago. And I feel like we've talked actually like the right amount. It feels like this is a good time to end this discussion. But that's why I was asking if anyone wants to add something at the end.
Yeah.
Like to have this, like maybe one conclusion. Does someone want to say something? Okay.
I think
then I'll just. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Please. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think we're good. Yeah. I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we're fine.
And we
Okay,
just have to
nice.
upload it on LMS then? How does it work?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I
The
think so,
others
yeah.
did that too. Okay, so just to wrap things up, thank you guys for all your hard work and for all your opinions and for the research that you did. I think there was a great discussion. I think we've talked a lot about liberalism in comparison to realism. I think we've had lots of different examples from nowadays, but also from history, from very close, like North Korea and the Juche, but also like far away in the US. I think this was a very productive session, and yeah, it was great talking with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think we can end the session now. Diego, thank you for recording everything and for taking care of the uploading. That's nice. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry.
Please make sure that the sound is on.
Yeah, that would be a big mistake. Okay, great. Guys, thank you for everything. I think we can end this meeting now. We'll catch up on Cut Talk or we'll see each other in class, okay?